When first I become citizen, I studied American culture very closely. Hey, score touchdown for me, big guy. Now I'm expert on all things American, except gasoline. But I don't need to know about gasoline. My car knows. What a country.
Amoco Ultimate, rated the best gasoline you can buy.
In Russia, cars also know, but they can't say.
Good morning. Morning and welcome back to Koga's Energy Summit, day 2 and our final day of the Energy Summit. You're probably wondering why we run that weird commercial right there. Our first Energy Summit was in 1988, so this is our 30th anniversary. So we've been trying to throw it back to 1988 throughout the conference with those little clips and videos. And I watched something like that, and you know why Netflix is so popular today. We don't want to watch commercials like that anymore. My name is Dan Haley. I'm the CEO of the Colorado Oil and Gas Association. And on behalf of our board of directors, we want to welcome all of you here again today. Our conference theme this year is growth, expectations, and opportunities. And it reflects the tremendous gains that have taken place in this industry in recent years. The oil and natural gas industry in the United States is now the world's leader. But with this new mantle of global leadership comes expectations and opportunities both here in Colorado and abroad. Today we're going to continue our conversation. We're going to continue to hear from industry thought leaders, but also at our business power lunch today, we're going to get a chance to hear from the next governor of Colorado, as both Walker Stapleton and Jared Polis have agreed to have lunch with us today. Now, I need to let you know that the candidates have not agreed to a debate on this stage. They're going to have 6 debates this fall, but each of them are going to come here today to share their vision for Colorado and their vision for oil and gas here in this state. So when you come back for lunch and there's not a cage match set up here on the stage, I don't want you to be disappointed. We're also going to talk a little bit today about the external threats that we are now facing at the ballot box. And we're going to explore ways that we can all be engaged in this fight for our livelihoods this fall. And that's going to be our final panel today at 4:15. So I appreciate it if you all could stick around. Make sure that anybody who's registered today is here for that final panel. Our board chairman, Chip Reimer from Noble Energy, is going to deliver some important messages that I think we all need to hear today. None of this today, this conference, yesterday, the golf tournament, would be possible without our sponsors. So I want to thank all of our sponsors very much. Sometimes they're up on the screen. You'll see them up there. If you see them around the expo hall or in here today, they've got a sponsor flag on their badge. Please thank them for all their support of our industry and of Koga. And finally, I'd like to introduce you to a special guest speaker who would like to welcome all of you here today to our conference. As president and CEO of the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce, Kelly Brough is focused on putting more Coloradans to work in really great jobs, which is why she's here with us today. It's a clear call to action that has driven this CEO from higher education to City Hall to the Chamber. She's directed an internationally recognized leadership program, been the chief of staff to then Mayor John Hickenlooper, and was the first female director of human resources for the city and county of Denver. And in a common theme, she was also the first female snowplow driver at Stapleton Airport. So we are definitely flashing back to the 80s on that one too, with Stapleton Airport. She was also the first female CEO of the Denver Metro Chamber. She was born and raised in Montana, but she is Colorado to the core, and we welcome Kelly Brough.
I told Dan I wish I was plowing snow again. That job was awesome. By the way, it's the thing my dad is most proud of me for. Many of you know this about me. My father worked in oil and gas when I was in Montana growing up. As a matter of fact, it was this industry that bought our family our first home. And while my dad was injured and he couldn't work anymore, nobody's fault, he went back to school. And when my dad went back to school, my family had no income, so we received assistance. But it was the ownership of our home that I'm convinced provided the stability that allowed my dad to graduate from college, for his 3 children to go on and be relatively upstanding citizens today. And so I not only personally love this industry and recognize what you've done for my own family, but you're doing that for 120,000 Coloradans. And I'm grateful, and I'm appreciative, and so is our chamber and its 3,000 members. I want to really thank Dan Haley and his leadership. COGA bringing us together for this summit every year is inspiring, just as the rally at the Capitol a few weeks ago was so inspiring for all of us. So thank you, Dan, and your entire team for everything you're doing for the oil and gas industry. I particularly love this year's conference, taking technology and energy and recognizing these are two foundational and fundamental industries that drive every single thing we do in Colorado. You not only make it cheaper for us to do business in Colorado because you underwrite the cost of energy and running our companies and our residences, but you also are using technology in your industry and a model for every other industry of the pace of change that we can move when we embrace both of these. It's a perfect summit for that conversation, and it's a perfect state for both those industries to show you can thrive. The last thing I want to leave you with is this issue of Initiative 97. As Dan said, you're going to have more conversation today about the importance, but you all know the importance of doing it. Most important for our 3,000 members is that you know you're not alone. That you not only have the Chamber of Commerce and every single one of our members helping oppose that initiative, but we'll be working with unusual partners to make sure they come to the table and show their support for every single person working in this industry and every company who chooses to invest in Colorado. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for allowing us to be part of it.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you for your leadership and your help in joining us in the fight against Initiative 97. So before we get started, I'll ask the panelists to begin coming up to take their seats at the on stage. Before we do that, I do want to thank our conference steering committee, which is made up of board members and industry volunteers who help us plan, contact speakers, make sure we are able to put this conference together every year, and certainly our COGA staff. So if we can give all of them a round of applause, I would appreciate it. And I want to announce a scheduling change that is not in your book. Our natural gas markets forum will go on at 1:45 today. Game-changing technology will start at 3:30 and will lead directly into our final panel, which is the Election 2018 panel. So game-changing technology at 3:30, which is going to be a fantastic panel. You don't want to miss it at 3:30, and then elections 4:15. So now I'll introduce the moderator for this panel, which I'm really excited about. This is a very important issue for our industry, and I thank all of you for being here today. Our moderator for this discussion is Jennifer Bryce, who serves as the Manager of Corporate Communications for Anadarko Petroleum. She joined Anadarko after a 17-year career as a TV news reporter and anchor, including 7 years for CBS 4 here in Denver. We're thrilled to have her with us in the oil and gas industry now, and please welcome Jennifer Bryce.
I have to tell you, I look across this room and I'm so excited to see so many people here this morning because, as Dan just expressed, this is a huge topic in our state right now. And there's just a lot of things influencing it, and urban development we're in the center of it here in Colorado, as many of you across the room know this. So good morning, and thank you for being here, and certainly thank you for our panel being here. Before we go any further, I'd like to introduce the gentlemen on the panel here. You probably all already know them, but we've got Bart Brookman, President and CEO of PDC Energy. In the middle, we've got Brian Miller, Director of U.S. Onshore Government Relations and Communications for Noble, and also Chris Wright, Chief Executive Officer and Chairman of the Board of Liberty Oil Field Services. So thank you for being here today. I'm excited to put my old reporter hat back on and ask some questions today, so that's kind of a fun part of this today for me. I do miss asking questions of people. But I want to kick this off by letting you guys know that when I was approached by COGA to be part of the summit this year, I said, I really want to be part of this panel. Urban development, oil and gas, and the communities that we're now having to coexist and integrate with is the big topic across the state. There's tremendous growth going on in Colorado, as we all know. You look outside your office doors, your windows, and you see cranes in the air, and you see just buildings being erected. You drive then along the northern corridor of I-25 all the way up to Fort Collins, and you see homes and subdivisions popping up in the very areas where the companies in the state have been operating for more than 30 years. So we've been there a long time, but we have this new dynamic going on that's really important to address. So the goal of this panel today is to talk to these gentlemen and hear what it is their companies are doing for best practices, what kind of various approaches they're taking, the expansion of technology that you're using to be part of this conversation with the communities, and also just what kind of community engagement are we doing. I have to tell you, being a former reporter and coming into this industry in the last year, I had no idea how much these different companies and all of us, how much we spend time having conversations with the people who live in the neighborhoods near our operations. And I wish that that was something more that the outside world was really able to see. So with that as our objective, I'm going to actually turn it over to the gentleman here on the panel, and you guys are going to give us an opportunity to let us know a little bit about your background, your companies, and also some of the various approaches that you're taking to urban development. You want to start, Bart?
I will start. Welcome, everybody. A really important topic, community involvement, operator responsibility, operator engagement, particularly given our current political environment. Let me start by reflecting a little bit. I've been involved in 7 or 8 of the major operating districts across the country. I've been involved in the Boulder Oil Field for 30 years, and I can honestly say in the last 10 years, I am incredibly proud of the progress we have made as operators, as service companies, in government relations, community relations, and the application of technology to minimize the impacts of our operations. So incredible progress, a lot more to come. But again, I'm very proud of our team at PDC for what we've done and where we're at today. Let me give a little history on PDC and where we're at. We're headquartered here in Denver. We have about 575 employees. Approximately 450 of those are in Colorado, evenly split between our Greeley district and our Denver office. We currently have 3 drilling rigs running. We've got about a $500 million capital budget in the state, and we'll drill somewhere around 160 wells this year. Most of those will be targeting the Niobrara and to a lesser extent the Codell Formation. We also have a 60,000 acre position in the Delaware Basin in West Texas, running 3 rigs there. We've got about a $450 million budget allocated to West Texas, and those 3 rigs will drill approximately 30 wells targeting the Wolfcamp Formation. So we have about $1 billion budget. Just interesting, we operate in 2 states, 3 counties, and we have 4 communities that we are very involved with. The town of Pecos in Texas, and more importantly in Colorado, the town of Kersey, the town of Gilchrist, and the city of Greeley. It gives us the ability to have point focus relations with those communities and the counties and develop very strong relationships with our neighbors. The past 10 years, we have expanded our community relations, compliance groups, and government relations groups extensively within the company. And again, I'm very proud where we're at today as an organization, and I think we are viewed as really, really good neighbors. A little bit on our philosophy when we started this whole journey around community relations. Really a 2-prong approach. First, when we enter an area or we're involved in a community, we begin with very open, honest, transparent communications with all parties. The second part of our plan is we develop long-term plans, and we begin very early with all stakeholders in discussion of those plans. And that includes landowners, town planners, county officials, and first responders. We include everybody in those discussions. We view community relations as a responsibility of everybody at PDC, from the front lines, the people who are on our landowners' property every day, up to our C-suite, where we have responsibilities in the government relations and community relations avenues. So what's involved in our planning process? First, the regulatory climate dictates in Colorado that we have to plan at least 2 years out. Some of that is the permitting process and other things, but it also makes it very, very it's a good process for us because we have the ability to go into the communities, engage all required parties, and talk to them about our long-term plans. We engage early with all stakeholders in the process. On this front end, it's primarily our operations team and our land groups. They meet with landowners, town officials, regulators. We hold extensive discussions on how to minimize the impacts of our operations, and we hold many additional extra meetings not required under the regulations to ensure we are doing everything in our power to listen to the communities. From spud to production to when we plug the wells, we maintain those relationships with communities and with the counties. We make it a practice to have no surprises around our operations. It's important to note we do the same with first responders. We bring them to our sites. We teach them about our operations. We teach them what they are encountering if they had to respond to a location. We give them updates on our safety programs and the protocol around our operations. Last and really important is what we do to give back to the communities. At PDC, we employ a significant number of the residents. We build parks, we build playgrounds, we donate to the schools, to the first responders. We revitalize buildings, improve the communities, support scholarship programs, and really important, one day a year, every employee in the company is asked to not show up to work at PDC. Instead, to show up at a charity in our communities. And last May, we had what we call our Energize Our Community Day, or EOC Day. We supported 35 different charities across the country. Next, let me talk about technology. Really important in where we're going today. We try to incorporate best practices, the newest technologies. We strive to be smarter and safer in our operations. Just some examples. Sound walls, focus lighting on our rigs to minimize the impacts of the light in the evening. Emerging electrification of drilling and completion operations. Tankless facilities, which does require an oil pipeline to your facility. And very, very important is acreage swaps, which PDC had a significant swap with the Noble team a couple of years ago, which formed our Kersey area, but it gives all operators the ability to drill longer and longer laterals, hopefully 2-mile laterals. This helps minimize surface impacts. The regulatory side, I think everyone is aware, Colorado probably has some of the strictest regulations in the country, and I've argued with our government relations team many times, I think probably the strictest in the world. Just some examples of things we're doing today. Tank pressure monitoring, loadout controls, AVO inspections. These are all aimed at reducing VOC emissions on our batteries. Full facility emission engineering pre-construction of our batteries. Vapor control systems on loadout facilities. Infrared cameras are used to detect any leaks on the facilities. We maintain a full VOC reduction program, what we call Project Stream, that is applied to all of our batteries. And we have full mapping testing of all risers, flow lines, and facilities to ensure their safety. As a company now, the bulk of our oil, and this has really progressed over the last 5 years, is on oil pipeline. This has reduced last year approximately 260,000 truckloads of oil that are not on the roads, reduced truck emissions by 80 tons, and removed all associated dust related to trucking. We maintain 24 environmental health and safety employees. We have 16 of them dedicated to compliance and air compliance. Last year, we had 1,800 inspections in the state of Colorado performed on our facilities, and any issues that we found were immediately corrected. And our greenhouse gas emissions from our facilities in Colorado have been reduced by 60% over the last 5 years. We currently maintain about 50 major environmental health and safety topics for our field employees that we go through annually. And everything I just covered, we have a budget of about $20 million a year that we spend on all of the above. So just in closing, we've dedicated a tremendous amount of dollars, resources, and human energy into this. It's been an evolution for the company. I think it's been a tremendous success, as if you went out to any of the communities I mentioned, we would be viewed as good neighbors. I can assure you we understand the importance of this topic, and I think it's incumbent on all operators in the state to continue to focus on this and push forward to constantly improve the reputation of the industry. So with that, I'll turn it back to you. Or
we're going to go to Brian Miller with Noble.
Great. Thank you, Bart. Jennifer, thank you. It's a privilege to be on this panel with some real leaders in the industry. PDC and Liberty are truly leading the way in many, many respects. So thank you for that. I'd like to spend my time this morning talking to you about the journey that our company, Noble Energy, has been on over the last couple of years as we work to find ways to communicate the great things that we're doing here in Colorado and how we developed our Noble Neighbor program. I want to share this because I feel that it can be an example for all of you and for all of us in industry and how we communicate internally with our employees and how we communicate externally with the communities in which we operate. It's a fact that we all in industry work hard to deliver our activities safely and perform them with the highest environmental responsibility. Those are our primary concerns. We're all doing innovative things. That is the essence of our industry, right? We don't stand still, we constantly innovate, and we strive to do things better with reduced impacts. Frankly, it's good business, right? So within Noble, in building our Noble Neighbor program, we looked at all of the neat and innovative things that we were doing across the business. Just to share with you a few examples. Our air team, Bart alluded to the use of leak detection and repair activities relative to our operations. That's a regulatory requirement, but it's something that we really don't talk about externally a whole lot. It has reduced VOC and other emissions significantly across the industry here in Colorado. Our land team, how they engage with our landowners and with communities in innovative ways, look at the long term. Our operations, how we have taken an integrated development planning approach to our activities and how we've developed eco-nodes as ways to reduce our impacts, our footprints, et cetera. Drilling, how we take the extra care above and beyond the regulatory requirements to ensure the integrity of our wells. Our training and competency group, the work that they do with our training center up in Greeley to ensure our people have the skills they need before they go into the field. And we share that with others in the communities, other operators, first responders, and the like. Then our Operations Control Center, as our employees there talk about it, they're the eyes in the sky 365 days a year that are watching, making sure that our operations are performing to standard. And then finally, our plug and removal program. We're spending lots of time and energy removing old vertical wells, several hundred of them a year from communities and rural areas as a way to sort of evolve this business forward. So as we went through this, we found that essentially every part of the business was doing something that had a positive impact in the communities and was essentially supportive of this Noble Neighbor program that we've built. And so we built out 3 pillars under which all of these activities fall. The first is community. So we live here, we work here, right? We listen to our communities and improve as we go. The second pillar is safety. It's our responsibility as a company and as an industry. And we always strive to be better. And then finally, technology and innovation and how they help us protect the environment and find ways to deliver the energy that we need. And so we determined that in all of this, we had a communications platform, a business-wide program, a Noble Neighbor program. And it encompasses all the things that we've been doing, just as many of you do in your businesses every day. So we took all the pieces together and we gave our employees essentially a way to use their voice to tell their stories We've done this through videos, through digital advertising as a way to get the word out about the things that we're doing as a company and we're doing as an industry, really to give those employees a voice. I'd encourage you to look at the Noble Colorado website. It's noblecolorado.com under the Noble Neighbor Program, and you can see all the different programs that we have listed there. And really, I think this gives employees a way to show the pride about what they do within this company and the industry. Our employees are our most compelling spokespeople, so we need to give them the tools and the voice to tell these stories. And it allows others to relate as well. If someone might be in the finance group, for example, they might not have direct interface with some of these programs, but they know someone who works in it and can relate that story, right? It allows other people, family, friends, parents, to tell the stories as well. Very compelling and impactful. And then finally, this program allows us to demonstrate our commitment to communities and to show our passion from our people to make it real. So with that, we're going to show a little video as a demonstration of this program. I think it highlights our plug-in removal program and the work that we're undertaking, like many others, to evolve the industry, to take some of these vertical wells out of communities, out of rural areas, go above and beyond what's required to be good neighbors. So without further ado, I'll let our employees tell the story in their own words.
You could hardly even tell, but here at this dog park, we're standing right next to where a well used to be. I think this dog park is a great use of the land. When we plugged this well, we came in and we reclaimed it back to what was original. And then the neighborhood came in, and with having the ground level and no well in the way, they were able to make this great dog park that we can really enjoy.
We are actually in the middle of plugging and removing a well. After we get to about 1,000 feet, then we will pump a cement plug all the way to surface. Hydrocarbons will never be able to come out of this well again after we are done plugging it.
First off, we go out, we plug the wells, then we come and we remove the facility. We will remove the tanks. A year from now, it'll look like there was never a facility here.
It's important to take so many steps to plug a well because we want to make sure we're doing it right. We go up and above beyond our state regulations just to make sure that we're never going to have to come back and disturb this location again, that we'll never have hydrocarbons coming back to surface, and that once we are done with this well is completely done for the future.
It's a win-win for both the community and us. I think as a company, we want to do better for the community. We're all locals here and we love our state, so if we can do something to help that and continue to make the state great, then we love to do it.
The video, just someone who talks too loud and rambles on a bit too long. But first of all, Liberty is a frac company. We're a service company. So we're not the tip of the spear in community engagement. Our customers, PDC and Noble and the others in this basin, they lead the effort to engage with communities about the right trade-offs and how to do that. We come in behind and work in partnership with them to hydraulically fracture these wells. That's what the shale revolution is, a different way to frack wells to allow production from source rocks. We don't have to wait till oil and gas leaks out and find out where it got trapped. We just go straight to the source rocks. Liberty has over 2,000 employees, and over 1,000 of those in Colorado. And most all of those live north of Denver in the oil patch. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Colorado, just southeast Denver. And there's two things I knew when I was a kid. I was crazy lucky to be born in this beautiful state. I love the outdoors. I'm a hiker, biker, climber, mountain climber. And I knew as a kid that I wanted to travel the world and climb the mountains of the world. I also knew I was crazy lucky to be born in the second half of the 20th century in the United States, in Colorado. And at that time, about 30% of the world population still lived in extreme poverty, meaning they were smaller than us physically because they were calorie deficient, crazy high infant mortality rate, and their lives were like our ancestors, but nothing like our lives. So I had sort of two passions. I want to see the world fundamentally selfish one and protect wilderness and outdoor spaces, and I want to see if everyone else can get as lucky as me. Now, there was a different view then, concern. The belief when I was in high school in the early 80s was we're running out of oil and gas, we're running out of farmland and fertilizer, and in fact, our best days are going to be behind us, and society is going to go the other way. In fact, I went to MIT specifically to work on fusion energy. That was my view. If we're running out of oil and gas, that's the most promising, dense, vast source of energy that maybe could be part of that fix. In graduate school, I worked on solar energy, and very early on in my career, I worked on geothermal energy. So I'm sort of an all-around energy nerd and not an oil and gas guy by design, but really by accident or by luck. And I've come to, in my sort of travels of the world, I came to this view that two things have lifted people out of poverty, have given us what we all have. And that's the spread of human liberty, the spread of human freedom to pursue their dreams, whatever they are, in commerce and enterprise, and the arrival of oil and gas. So again, by luck or maybe by just maturity, I ended up going into this industry. So coming back to Colorado now, the DJ Basin's an old field, but Colorado's a great state. So we've got a growing population, which my mom doesn't celebrate for the traffic. I celebrate it. It means we're a dynamic society and young people from all over want to live here. I don't blame them. I want to live here too. And so what it means is we've got all this development of neighborhoods and expansion on top of the old DJ field, and the field's been revitalized by new technologies. So when we first brought frac operations to Colorado in 2013, we looked at the complaints from communities. What were the impacts on the frac side, what we did? And it's the largest operation in well construction. What were the things people had the biggest problems with? Noise, dust, truck traffic, and the length of time the operations went on for. So we've spent 5 years now and forever in the future working on how to reduce those impacts. We spent over 2 years changing a frac fleet to make it quiet. A frac fleet on location, it's 45,000 horsepower. That's roughly equivalent to a 747 jet engine. I know Kelly was driving the snowplows around the airport, and she's familiar how loud those engines are. So we worked to make it so that a frac fleet could run and operate at full power at 500 feet away, the minimum setback distance. You wouldn't be able to hear it. It blends into background noise. A lot of money, a lot of effort, but boy, technology can change the game and do that. We run 7 of those frac fleets today and 2 more under construction. Dust. The biggest source of dust is, we pump mostly water and sand underground. When you bring a sand truck up, it's sort of the old-fashioned way. It's like a big dump truck. The sand is blown off pneumatically like a vacuum cleaner running backwards, and it creates a dust cloud and a lot of noise, and it takes a while to do it. So there can be a line of trucks waiting to unload their sand. So this technology wasn't rocket science. Use a steel container, keep sand entirely sealed up in a container, have it fall out a hatch in the bottom, gravity feed it. No dust. Trucks can now drive up on location, forklifts load off the steel boxes in 2 or 3 minutes instead of 45 minutes. So there's not a line of trucks waiting, and we've removed the dust. The throughput, if you're going to go in and impact a community, it's better if it's 1 month, not 2 months, or 20 days, not 30 days. I always think when they built a Starbucks down the street from me, there was 6 months of construction. It's truck traffic, it's noise, it was disturbing. I was thrilled when it got it done because I had a latte now only a block away. But but there's an impact. Everything in life involves a trade-off or an impact to do anything. And we've worked with our customers, with technologies, mostly with the human beings in our company about how to be more efficient in operation and get things done faster. So average throughput today for frac operations is more than twice as fast as it was when we first entered Colorado. I think we'll see significant continued improvements going forward. So our goals, together is to work and figure out how to develop these resources. I give these talks and people say, why don't you drill out there? You know, why do you have to drill here? Which is a great question. I would ask it myself. And the short answer is we drill where the oil is. It was put down 100 million years ago. It's not moving very fast. And also the other plus of that is it's where the infrastructure is. You need pipelines and gathering facilities. If you go out in a place with no development, there's a much bigger impact. But if you develop, for example, in the DJ, where there's a lot of existing infrastructure, you can do it quicker and with less new infrastructure construction. Not no new infrastructure construction, but much less than we could otherwise. Last thing I'll close with in the opening remarks is developing in urban areas is not new. In fact, it's as old as the oil and gas industry. When oil and gas started in Colorado, the second field and really maybe most significant field 100-some years ago was the Boulder Oil Field. That Boulder Oil Field is now covered by the Boulder Reservoir. But you know, there was development here then. And on a personal level, the original company I started, a technology company, 20 years ago, we did a fracturing project of 6 wells that we named the Beverly Hills 90210. We named it after the TV show, which was popular at the time. But the Beverly Hills Mall is a crescent, and inside the crescent, 6 wells were drilled. And we did the hydraulic fracture design and engineering. Everyone was shopping at the mall in the middle of Beverly Hills. And technologies weren't as good then as they were today, but you know, we dealt with the shoppers and the neighbors and the traffic through the thing. LA County, the city of LA sits on top of a gigantic oil field. So community interface is not a new thing, but it's a new thing in Colorado. And this reservoir, this location in Colorado, is incredibly rapidly growing oil and gas production, and we've got an incredibly fast-growing population. I celebrate both of those, but we have to work hard to mitigate those impacts. I think we've made great progress over the last 5 years, and I'm actually incredibly enthusiastic about the continued progress that will come in the next 5 years.
Thank you very much. So 2 things before we get started. For the audience, I want to encourage you to take a look at the note cards that are on your table, take out your pens, and throughout the duration of this conversation to go ahead and fill out your questions, your thoughts, anything that you would like to ask of the panel. And at the end of our Q&A session, we'll open it up to the audience. So it's a great opportunity for everyone to be part of this conversation. And for the panel, I want to encourage you guys, we love hearing success stories, but I think it would be really valuable for all of us to also hear about the growing pains that your companies have gone through, the areas where you've been challenged and where you feel that the folks in the room could benefit from hearing that, because the collision of success and challenges and growing pains to me is where we come up with solutions that are just good for everyone to hear. So you ready to go for this?
Sure.
Okay. Had to ask permission. So I want to begin with starting out with the positives. Can you all tell us one area where technology and better planning worked out not only for industry, but also for the communities?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
I would say, and this started about 4 years ago, we have what we call our Kersey area, which is a just under 20,000 acre block, fairly continuous thanks to a significant trade with the Noble Group, that we have in the last 3.5, 4 years drilled well over 400 wells. And that has been without incident, fully supported by the town of Kersey and Weld County. And when we started that project, and I think back, we actually had one of the neighborhoods just on the edge of Kersey with concerns, and we were notified of that. We had many, many meetings with them, and really important, we educated them on what we were doing. Their fears were quickly diminished, and as I said, we have drilled over 400 wells in a 3.5, 4 year period. Incredible success for the company, one of the more prolific areas of the Wattenberg field. And right now I would classify our relationship with the town of Kersey as an A+. We had a visit just over a year ago where the mayor actually asked me if we'd move corporate headquarters to Kersey. which I, of course, had to tell them we probably aren't going to do that, but we appreciated the offer. So I think it's been one of our bigger successes in Colorado.
Very good. Brian?
Yeah, I think from a high level, from an industry perspective, I think horizontal drilling has really been the big innovation that's allowed us to sort of move as an industry. So horizontal drilling in this basin's been around for over a decade, and it's really allowed us to focus our impacts, right, and to be more narrowly focused on how we can shrink the size of footprints, how we can locate facilities, and do so in a way that's less impactful to communities. And it allows us to continue to focus ever on mitigating the impacts to the communities and the environment, frankly. Yeah.
And Chris?
Great. I hope we go back to the failures too, because we got plenty of those to discuss, or things that we learned from. But on a success story, I'll go back to this quiet fleet. We began the design engineering of that sort of early summer 2014. Of course, we thought 6 or 9 months we'll have something great. We didn't. Turned out it was a harder problem than we thought, but we continued that on. And a year and a half into it, I think winter of 2016, tough times in the oil and gas industry, we thought by summer we'll certainly have it ready. And our first customer for that was Extraction. They were drilling a large pad, and they had met with the neighbors just a little over 500 feet south of a neighborhood just east of I-25. Embarrassed, I can't remember the name of the neighborhood. And they met with the community there before they developed. They said, we're going to use electric rigs. We've got a quiet fleet under development. We'll wait till that's ready to bring it out. They met with the neighborhood association. They walked the streets of the neighborhood straight north of us. And they did wait. They got it drilled, and they kept asking us, when is it going to be ready? And we said mid-August, and I think that pad sat there for 3 months. And then we brought out, they met with the neighborhood again when we were just about to start, said, hey, they're going to start moving equipment in. We think we'll start next Monday, and please come down or let us know how we can update you on the progress. Well, it turned out we rigged the equipment in quickly, and we got going, and we started pumping on Friday. And throughput was incredibly high, a lot of planning. And the neighborhood association walked down, or someone from the neighborhood association walked down Thursday evening and said, hey, when are you guys going to start? Are you delayed? And we were very happy to say we've pumped 120 frac stages. There's 210 on this pad. We're over halfway done. And I think they had the communication that had that comfort, and then we had a technology that we were halfway through before people knew activity had started.
Thank you. Now, my next question is, what advice would you give to other operators in the area, or even someone new who might have assets that are in these rapidly growing areas where there's just so much urban development happening?
I think we hit a lot of these in our openings. Staff around this. Make sure you have the right people going out to the communities. Make it part of your corporate culture. It has to start at the top, and set the expectations for all employees that we're partners with the communities in this. You've got to listen. You've got to dedicate the resources, including dollars, because sometimes this is not cheap. And just really set firm expectations and planning and communications with the communities. Chris is talking about communicating with neighborhoods during a frac job. It's the most important thing you have, is letting them know what you're going to do, set the expectations, tell them what you're going to do, and then don't deviate from what you told them. It's when we change things, do things differently, and don't communicate that the industry gets in trouble. So you've got to set your path and follow your path.
Brian?
Yeah, I would just add, I think taking a long-term view, building the relationships, committing the dollars and the people, and really thinking about these relationships as campaigns, right? Things that aren't just sort of short-term, but have a long life to them, and committing those campaign-style resources to the relationships in these local communities.
Yeah, same theme, which is engage with the humans. Candidly, to me, I think a huge benefit is to be candid in communications. If you engage with people early on, They have concerns, they have worries. I would too, if I didn't know anything about oil and gas and it was being developed in my neighborhood. What's going on down there? I've heard all this stuff. Don't assume everyone knows what we know and that they have natural comfort. Engage with people, hear their concerns, answer those concerns honestly and candidly. And I think it goes a long way. Nothing has no impacts. So if we tell people up front, you know, geez, there is going to be truck traffic, there's going to be this and there's going to be that, but here's what we're doing to minimize it, and here's how, and we'll work with you on that. And hear them out and candidly share what the trade-offs are. I think that builds a trust and comfort that allows partnerships to thrive.
And what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys have found in the urban operation game? I mean, I want to hear about those growing pains right now.
Oh, I think the biggest challenge is the miseducation of our voters, our residents. A lot of the things we're talking about, a lot of things Chris is talking about, and the improvement in energy and what's done for the world, our safety record, our commitment to the community's safety, all those aspects. There's so many skewed facts out there. And I think one of our biggest challenges is when you walk into a community, you better be prepared to start with education. And so many times we walk in and there's a fear factor. And you have to take the time to get past that. And you've got to educate the people. But you can expect, as Chris said, if you're walking into a new area and they don't know oil and gas, they're going to have a lot of questions, and they're probably going to have some pretty distorted facts. So I think it's always one of our biggest challenges. And that continues today in the state of Colorado.
Brian?
I would echo Bart's comments. I think the education piece is really important. I think we're doing a better job as an industry. I think we have a long, long way to go. And to Chris's point about managing expectations, if people have an understanding of what to expect, they're much more apt to engage and not be folks that are sort of standing in the way of trucks, if you will, but rather having an understanding of where things are headed and what to expect.
Yes, give one example where I think we blew it was this whole thing about frac chemical disclosure, right? There was resistance. Well, there was resistance because somebody had a competitive product and they didn't want their competitor to know what was in it. Like, I get that, but that's this big. But we had a public trust factor that was infinitely bigger. And by being resistant to that, I mean, what do we think people are gonna think? Well, why won't you tell us? And we created a paranoia and a fear factor entirely of our own creation. We did that. I flew on a plane one time. I was flying back from New York to Denver, and I sat next to a guy, and he was the CEO of a clean energy company based in Boulder. And somehow we got talking, and I asked him what industry is he in, and he asked me what industry I'm in, and he's like, oh man, you know, it's crazy, you know, it must be pretty bad stuff in those frac fluids. Why won't you say what's in them? And I said, I totally agree. It's insane. It will be all disclosed. By this time, it actually had been passed that it was disclosed. He didn't know that. I said, go on our website. You'll see every chemical, everything we pump. But we did make a mistake there, a huge mistake, in dragging our feet on that. And I talked to him a little bit more about shale revolution and what it meant. He said, come on up to Boulder and give a talk at my company. You know, so I guess 60 people, the whole employees of this company, and I gave a story about shale technology and heard all the questions about worries about water and all that, and had a fantastic dialogue. I left too late, hour and a half, it went past lunch in this dialogue, and he came down the next week and said, give me a short slide deck. I had no idea. I want to be able to pitch and defend what you guys are doing. I just missed the boat on it. But it wasn't his fault. That's our fault. That's our fault. We've been slow in engaging with people. When I was a kid, everybody knew oil and gas was bad, it was dirty, you know, and it was going to be gone soon. That's not a new view that people have. And why is it? Well, we don't engage candidly and openly with data and paragraphs and emotions about what we do. I believed that as a kid. That's why I went to work on these other energy sources. And if those technologies work, I'm all for them. I'm sort of source agnostic. But I think we've gotten better, still a long way to go, you know, and we're behind the ball. We're behind the game as far as communication about what we do.
I'd like to dig into that a little bit. Why do you think this industry is behind the game, behind just in how they've been communicating with the communities around us?
Look, when I was a kid, we learned it in high school. You know, oil and gas was sort of bad and dirty, and they were greedy, and they were the sort of bad guys who were hurting the world. So I think that was the mainstream view of the industry. So what did the industry do? You know, a lot of oil and gas people don't say they work for oil and gas, you know? And so people did what they had to do. They had to get permits. We got to engage with the government. We got to engage with the communities. But they didn't engage with the public at large. If you let someone else define what you do, you know, most people don't care. They want their car to run and their light socket to work when they plug it in. But they're not that interested in it. We let a small number of people that really didn't like our industry for a number of different reasons define us. I always say if you're in a debate and you're quiet, you lose. But I think that was the nature of our industry. Keep your head down, follow the rules, do what you need to do, and that's it. Or, you know, sort of a carefully orchestrated spin campaign, which I think that doesn't work. So I think we followed a gear that was self-destructive for decades. I think the people on this stage and others are engaged in that now. Open, candid, honest. What are the real trade-offs of what we do? I give these talks. I gave a talk at CU twice, you know, at MSU in Bozeman. You know, there's protesters there. There's people that are angry at the start. I give kind of a nerdy talk on the history of oil and gas production and the technologies involved with it and this measurement data of what's going on. And at the end of those things, every time I have 1, 2, 3 dozen people lined up to intern at Liberty. I would have been one of those people. If you've only heard it's bad, it's dirty, it's destructive, how would you know otherwise?
It's interesting you say that because it's interesting to me when I'm in some of these community meetings that we put on and you see people walk in the door and they have a lot of questions, they have a lot of fears, like you said, but then when they walk out about an hour later after talking to engineers and geologists and landmen and all these different disciplines, they come away with just a better understanding and almost like a thank you. Thank you for letting me have this knowledge. Thank you for explaining your process. And that goes a long way here in Colorado. So I appreciate your comment about that. We have some catch up to do. So what would you find each of your companies have had the most success? What communication tools are really the most effective with those communities?
Oh, no question, face-to-face. Engage, take the time to visit them, sit at a table, put your maps out, put your plans, show them the truck traffic, show them the drill schedule, show them the frac schedule, and educate them on what we were just talking about. Make sure they understand the facts of what's going to happen. And as I said earlier, tell them what you're going to do and then go do what you told them. But face-to-face is absolutely the best way to communicate with them. There's a trust level that's built if you take the time to go visit them.
Indeed, I think ensuring that your employees are informed and understand some of the issues that the public's concerned about. And many of us have done these programs, ambassador programs, where we bring our employees in and we talk to them about some of the issues that are front and center, and ways to communicate, ways to talk about what it is we're doing, our planning processes, how we develop oil and gas, what we do on the reclamation side, what we do with respect to air, water, and the other issues, and just really give them the tools that they need to engage effectively.
The same. Humans trust and believe in humans, not in companies or websites or flyers or whatever. It's just that one-on-one human interaction. But we need to do a lot more of it. And we have, and not just us, everybody in our companies. They do all different things. And they can have all different views. But engage, talk to your neighbors across the fence line. I go to an increasing number of these town hall meetings or city council meetings. I was at one recently, and I sat down next to a couple gals, and we got talking, and we talked for 10 or 15 minutes, about environment, kids, life, community, all that. And when I got up to speak, she said, "You're on the other side?" We got to talk when you come back. But I think it's, You know, if you never met anybody from an oil and gas company and you heard we're all bad, and how would you know any different? How would you know any different?
So speaking of that engagement, can you give us an example of where a community came to your company and said, we have an issue with this, we have a problem with this, help us find a solution? Do you have any examples about how you're addressing their concerns?
Oh, I think we probably all have a long list that over the years we've had people come and express concerns. I think I can't name all of them, but I mentioned the one when we kicked off the Kersey development, and I believe it was our Chestnut Churchill pad, going back, pulling deep from my memory, 4 years ago. And the neighborhood was very concerned. And we spent a lot of time, a lot of communications, a lot of education, and I think exactly what you said as we technically explained and safety explained and operationally explained and took the time to get to know them and trust. We executed those projects cleanly, safely, and my recollection is we actually got some thank you cards during the holiday season from some of the residents as we wrapped up the project in thanking our field operations and our field land team for their communication. So it was a big challenge on the front end. We were actually having C-suite meetings around it, concerned we were going to have to move it or how are we going to access it. We ended up executing it, and it turned out to be a positive in the end.
Brian?
I think we all regularly are faced with issues like noise, dust, lighting, things of that nature. And if you have a relationship with your landowners, with your stakeholders, they come to you, you work these issues out. You find ways to keep the trucks off the roads during certain periods of time. You find a way to mitigate noise, do other things. It's all about a two-way street, right? These are relationships, and it can't be just one direction. And we have to constantly evolve and move. And we need to demonstrate that to people through our actions.
Two real quick. One was school traffic, right? Truly the biggest impact of what we do in a neighborhood is trucks, right? We still have to carry sand by trucks. We've moved enormously on pipelines for oil and gas, so they're not on as much trucks in a lot of cases now, but you got to bring the sand in, and it comes in a truck. And so we've had cases where, geez, there's extra truck traffic, the kids get out of school around this time, and they go to school around that time. How about if we just block out no truck traffic during those times? No problem. We get the times, you store extra sand during that time, you don't run the trucks then, you run the trucks outside of those windows. I think there are a lot of things that are meaningful that are absolutely addressable.
So speaking, I know technology is a big thing that you guys have implemented over at Liberty, but what are some of the upcoming technologies, those advancements that you think are going to help to solve the future problems for this industry as we continue to integrate with the communities?
We're in the middle of, Brian touched on it, central automation with monitoring on all our larger facilities. It's important to note most operators today are probably, from an asset perspective, when we drill one of these pads, we probably have assets anywhere from $50 to $100 million of value there, and significant amount of production and a significant amount of equipment and a major investment for the company. So monitoring that in a centralized fashion, as Noble does, is the way of the world, and do that 24 hours a day. That obviously has production benefits, but it has safety benefits, environmental benefits, and very important air emission benefits long term. So that's one. I think we've all talked about drones and where they may fit into this, especially from an air monitoring standpoint. I think the day will come. It won't be uncommon for an operator to have a drone on a regular pattern that's looking for any type of problem. I'll flip it to you guys. So.
One is running frac fleets on natural gas instead of on diesel, right? We do that today, and with today's technology, we can get 70% of our power from natural gas. Well, the next generation, Tier 4 diesel engines, are coming out, and a year from now, we'll be able to run them on 90% natural gas. So that's because that comes in by pipeline, it's cleaner burning, so that's, we've taken a big step already, but there's another big step coming about a year from now. Another one is a technology we've been working on for a couple years with a desalination company. It's a technology from the water desalination company, a company in Oakland, a pressure exchanger that basically, it's very nerdy, but basically it will mean frac operations faster, less humans, less impact, and increased safety. And I guess on the humor front, the name of it is the Vortec Missile. So you can see how great we are at marketing, right? We named our primary process fracking, and now we're bringing out a missile. So no wonder we got some issues.
Catchy words, right? What role, we're going to flip it around a little bit and touch upon something you had in your opening comments about local governments. What role are local governments having in that urban oil and gas development interface? It's a hot topic on the local and the state level.
So are you asking what role are they having? Because that's really
Yes.
different from every local government. I think we experience different enthusiasms from all the different local governments, and it's quite a hodgepodge. It's probably why I think all of us support a state-level regulation of the industry, because you've got a lot of different objectives and different priorities in these communities, and different experience levels and different knowledge levels about our industry. I can tell you what works for us, and it aligns, it's a two-way street. Everything we've been talking about, as far as engagement, education, knowledge, taking the time to listen, there's compromise in this. We've made huge compromises over the years on trying to get better and better and better, and we expect the local governments to do the same. But I would just say the attributes we would be looking for are those that they sit at the table and work with us, plan, pre-plan, and again, make compromises where needed. So I'll flip this over to you guys.
I would say they have a big role. I mean, the public is demanding more of them. They're demanding more of us. And so we need to actively engage and evolve.
Yes, I mean, governments have to respond to the interests of their constituents, right? So if their constituents are concerned, they're concerned. If their constituents are comfortable, they're comfortable. So it's, again, back to the communication, engage early. One other thing I'll close in saying is in development, typically in oil and gas development, I'm an operator in North Dakota, right? So we're drilling mostly on farmers and ranchers' land. They own the mineral rights. And so it's a very simple dialogue. They get the pluses, they get the minuses, the impacts. I always say fracking is far more popular the closer you get to it. Colorado is a little bit of an exception because we're developing property. We're developing, next to developments, and the developer typically kept the mineral rights, sold it, or held it. So the people that live there normally, they get the plus of what we're doing and they get the impact. But we have too many people in Colorado that aren't getting the plus. They're only getting the down. I think there's a structural issue there that I think we got to get more creative about having the benefits become more local than they are today.
Do you guys think that the communities recognize some of that compromise that's going on?
I think, yes. I think if we went into any of the three communities that we operate and we asked them, have we done a good job of compromising? I think the answer would be yes. We've worked with them. We've told them we've made changes. We've shifted schedules. We've moved pad locations, built pipelines, put sound walls up, changed lighting systems, quieter fleets. We've done a little bit of everything. So I think they see that. And again, that's the communication part. You don't want to just put the plan and go as you're executing. You want to give them updates about how things are going and what's working and in some cases what's not working. So
I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody agrees. That's a good thing. So recently, or I think Koch is about to release their community report this year, and I feel like it's important to note that being a good neighbor is being a neighbor who invests in the communities. And I have to tell you, I've never seen an industry that has done that to the degree that the oil and gas industry does. So I'm going to give you a couple notes here on what Koch is about to come out with their highlights. Nearly $10 million in donations, over 42,000 volunteer hours, 500 plus local organizations served, and $332,000 donated to the Tennyson Center for Children in 2018. And that's just the 2018 numbers. So that's pretty remarkable when you hear about that. Do you believe that the community recognizes the amount of donation and investment that this industry gives back? And do you think that they're going to realize that if the industry gets pushed down with some of the regulations or some of the things that are changing right now in the political world, that could be taken away?
Generally, no, right? Because we're bad communicators, right? This isn't a report. No one's going to read that report. More people learned about it when you just read it than is going to learn about it afterwards. And I do think we need to do more of it. You know, look, in our particular company, right? Our company's named Liberty, right? We want everyone to have these opportunities and great lives we've had. We support over 100 low-income kids in Colorado with scholarships to go to the school of their choice. We employ those kids when they're in high school. We employ those kids or a number of them when they graduate. Obviously, if they want to, it's not a deal. But I've been in several different industries. I know no industry remotely close to as philanthropic and as community engaged as our industry. But I don't know that it's out there. You walk in the Liberty office, there's pictures when the floods hit Longmont, right? It's our crew vans and our people cleaning out garages and all that. And that's not our companies. That's not a PR campaign. That's the humans. I only heard about this when it was happening. You know, they got the frac vans and the crew vans, and people go up and work in it. It is the nature of our humans because we work in people's backyards. You know, you're in technology, you go to someone's office and you lease that office. Most of our work is not in our office or on our land. We've grown up as guests on other people's land. And I think it's bred a culture of engaging with communities and doing that. But no, I don't hear a lot about that. Maybe Bart or Brian have a better idea why. I don't see that in the news much. I don't hear about it much.
No, I think when we go into a smaller community where we're so involved, they have a pretty good handle. We go into Kersey, they understand we helped rebuild the library, and the playground probably has a PDC tag on one of the benches or something. But and I think that's the easy stuff to always identify. I think it's those type of numbers when you roll them up. We've got to do a better job, and the community that needs to be communicated is called the state of Colorado, and I think we've fallen down on that, and I applaud Koga for doing the best they can to get that message out there, but I agree with Chris. I think we've got this group in the room who's going to take that, and we've got to find a way to get that out to all our voters. It's an important part of what this industry does. I know PDC, I think last year, we had 180 different organizations that we financially gave to. And that's a real number, and it's real dollars. It's not small. I think one thing he mentioned too, we don't do this to get credit. We do this because we like to run our companies that way. We want to have a culture where when there's a flood, Chris hears about his Liberty guys going and cleaning out garages and he didn't even know about it. So I think that's really an important point when you talk about this. And maybe we should try to get more credit for it. I don't know. Maybe we have to advertise that.
That's a great point, because I'll say that I've never met a bigger group of more humble people, and the companies are very humble also in sharing their stories about what they do. It's just not anyone's inclination on this panel to call up the media and say, hey, we just cut this check for this amount. It's like humble pie around here, which is a nice quality too.
I would agree. It's the nature of the industry, right? The fact is, though, we're part of the fabric of these communities, and we need to find ways to allow others even to tell our story. I mean, one of the things that we've tried to do at Noble Energy is work with our partners. Maybe I should move this. To help encourage them to tell the story. So the food bank up in Weld County, for example, you know, lots of our organizations give to that organization, right? The Tennyson Center is a great example. Oftentimes, them telling the story is much more credible and impactful, right, than us telling the story. So I think if we try to aid that conversation and move that conversation forward, I think we'll help impact others and tell the story.
Anything you want to add to that, Chris?
No, just following up on Bart's point, that yeah, we never did it to get credit or to do it, right? It's just people doing the right thing. We never did it for that. But back also to Bart's point, we're under threat and they want to shut down our industry in Colorado. Well, maybe we should change the gear on that and be a little more open and honest, a little more candid and self-promotional about what we do. I mean, probably essential to do it, but absolutely not in our nature. It's not why we do it.
The communications people in the room, you have an agenda item for next year, or for right now, right? We're going to open it up now to all the questions that came in from the crowd. The first one is, what do you expect from the pooling rulemaking, specifically as to calming community fears, and is there a state responsibility in communications?
The pooling rulemaking. Can someone bring me up to speed exactly what the question is?
Too technical for our panel.
And from the land, as far as our ability to pool acreage together? Is it?
I think it's forming drilling spacing units and force pooling, but.
Yeah, it's a hot topic in the government relations world right now. So we can move on to another one. Yeah. It's okay. You guys can find the panel afterwards.
Good educated answer on that one.
How does the company shift from viewing environmental compliance as an annoyance to something that you are proud to acclaim?
I would challenge that question. I don't think we've ever viewed environmental compliance as an annoyance. I think we view it as a responsibility. So obviously the expectations in the industry have changed tremendously over the last 50 years. Chris is talking about the development of the LA Basin, and I mean, it's unbelievable what has happened as far as the expectations of operators. So I think we understand the regs. We move forward to comply. There's been times as a company in an industry, I think we're all a little shocked at what's involved, even sometimes understanding the regs. Exactly how are we going to live by them? Okay, how do we staff and what technologies? It's easy to say, make it this clean. Then you have to figure out how to do that physically, and that's not always. So if there's anything, we've probably had times where we're a little overwhelmed with the people we have to add, the dollars, but we've never turned our back on the responsibility.
Yeah, I think it's a question of, what? Yeah, do we view it as an annoyance to protect the environment? Absolutely not. I'm a 10-year board member of Environmental Group, so absolutely not. Maybe there's an impression of that. Absolutely not. In fact, we wrote a letter to the North Dakota Industrial Commission, encouraging a tighter regulation on cement bond logs after a well is drilled, because that's a real issue. And we get defined by the worst operator in our industry. Who's the stoutest advocate for tight regulations? The industry, by far. Because all it takes is one bad operator cutting a corner and causing a problem, and it tars all of us. So I would say our industry has actually been a champion of these things. Now, there are a lot of things that are named environmental protection or health and safety that really don't achieve that end. And do we oppose those? Of course, right? A setback purposefully designed to shut down oil and gas drilling in Colorado, is that about protecting the environment or health and safety? Nothing whatsoever to do with that. So do we oppose those things? Of course.
I think Colorado, frankly, is a glowing example of how different stakeholders can work together to create a regulatory framework under which the industry can operate. I mean, how many people do you hear talk about Colorado having the strongest regulations in the nation? We just had a chief executive of a company reference that. So I think there's certainly support for and to some degree some pride in what we've built here in Colorado. And a lot of these practices are being taken elsewhere, whether or not they're required in those other jurisdictions. So I think we really have built something here that demonstrates that you can have an industry operate in a really special place like Colorado, and you can have a healthy economy as well.
There's a design and a template, as you're saying, that what operators have done out here that now is being pushed on to other parts of the country. So that's a wonderful point.
Not generally pushed on, but adopted. I agree with these guys. We're proud of the fact that Colorado has the tightest regulatory environment. Not groaning under it, proud of it. And state regulation is a laboratory, right? They do this in Colorado, and everybody in North Dakota or Texas or Ohio says, hey, they did that in Colorado. It works. Let's do that.
I think if you ask most people in the environment or in the industry, they would also say they welcome those regulations, that they've served us well in many ways as well. So I'm going to say that we're out of time right now. We didn't get to go through many of the questions from the audience, but I want to thank you. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for the thoughtful conversation and just offering and lending your experience, your success stories, your growing pains, and hopefully the room will be able to benefit from it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jennifer.
It's a great panel discussion. Again, let's give a hand to Bart and Brian, Chris, and Jennifer for the work today.